Excuse me. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another evening show, the Midnight Hatter's Chop Shop, where we're gonna dig into some plastic and do some Gunpla customizations. I'm, of course, your host, Steven, aka Midnight Hatter, and joining me as always are the Gunpla. I don't know about you guys, but it has been a heck of a week today. I am exhausted, and so this is going to be a little bit of we'll say like polystyrene therapy for me. But I'm excited because there's some things that I want to show off for you guys and show off the progress that we've made on the Core Zeta. There's a few things that I think it's just going to be sort of interesting to see how we're developing them, and we'll show off some of the things that I'm building on the side that are going to play a role in the final piece. I think tonight we might even be able to get some LEDs rolling in it. I know I'm a three trick pony basically. If it's not silicone, LEDs, or um, some combination thereof, then but that's it. I hope you all are doing well. I see we've got Ultronimus in the chat. Evening operators. Good to see you, buddy. I hope that this is going to be a fun show. Like I said, I planned on doing this last night, but working on that real grade Gundam 2.0 proved to be trickier than I imagined. I was hoping I would be able to finish that in about 30 minutes, and it turned out to take like about an hour and 20. But I was really satisfied with the results, and I hope you guys were too. We were able to basically light up the entire inside of that Gundam's head with just a single nano LED. So, if we can do something similar here, then we'll be in business. So let me go ahead and hop into our table cam here and show you what we are working with. Now, here is the desiccated corpse of the Core Alice Gundam. I've got a little bit of a different camera setup going on here tonight. Let me know what you guys think, if this is interesting. I like it because it keeps the camera and the light kind of out of my way, so I can, work on these things without kind of ducking and weaving over everything. But if you guys prefer the more direct front-on shot, let me know. So this has been a lot of progress from where we started. Obviously, I have added in the thigh plating from the armor of the Zeta Gundam. This was a pretty fun portion, because what we ended up doing, it's pretty neat that it slides on and off like that. I'm going to end up plastic cementing it to the lower leg here once all is said and done, because I do want it to be solid there. But what I ended up doing was, this was the leg armor of the Zeta Gundam, and what I did was cut the top of it off because it kind of has this part built into that armor. So I cut the top of that part off so that it would sit flush against the upper thigh of the Core Alice Gundam. But the inside was a lot wider, and so it was not as snug of a fit. If I had just put it on there, it would be kind of rattling around back and forth, and we don't want that. So I ended up filling it in with some plot plate, cut off some parts to really build up the interior of that. But unfortunately, I built up the interior so much that I ended up having to cut a sort of divot in there in order to make room for the top of the thigh that connects to the hip joint. And so basically what we do is we just kind of slide this down, and we don't even have to do all that. We can just remove this portion of the leg where the peg is, slide this on, and reconnect it, slide it up, and there we go. We've got our completed Zeta thigh, which rotates on a joint like that, which gives us a lot of extra posability that the Zeta Gundam does not have by default. Of course, as you guys know, we've got the clawfoot for standard mode, and then when it's time to transform into the full-on Zeta Gundam, we've got our post in here that we clip in like that, slide this down, and here we go. We are rocking and rolling. Did the same thing on this side. This one's not put together at the moment, and I'm going to show you guys why in just a moment. I really like the proportions of this, despite I normally don't like, really skinny Gundam models like this, but this one in particular kind of resonates with me for some reason. I'm not sure. Maybe it's the Zeta in it. Um, the white whale of this kit has been figuring out exactly how I'm going to manage the chest and upper torso portion. Um, you know, I thought maybe I can just have it always have the Zeta Gundam chest on there, and that's probably going to be the route that we go, but I need to trim out the inside a little bit more. So this was actually the chest from the Zeta Gundam, and what you'll see is there's a little faint line there because it was wider than the body of the Core Gundam. Even like in core mode, it's still a lot wider than the Core Gundam's body. So what I did was I cut it in half in order to take out some of the center of the chest, and it kind of gave it this nice arch top look. We're going to sand that down and make sure that you can't see the seam line. But yeah, I mean, I kind of used a little claw plate band-aid underneath there. So yeah, and then we're going to put in the yellow vents and all that stuff. This has been attached on here with some plastic cement. So we did that, and then for the backside, we've got, this is the backside of the Zeta Gundam. It used to have some fins that extended out, but again, they extended further than the outside of the Core Gundam, so we cut those down in order to make it a little narrower. So I think what's going to happen is we're going to have, this is the standard chest. So it's going to be like this, and then when the arms extend out, we are going to use this part, which is part of the existing chest armor that comes with the core Alice Gundam, and then we'll kind of mount it to the shoulder armor, which will slide down over the peg joints here. I might even just take these peg joints off because honestly, if it sits right, then it'll rotate with the arm, and we don't have to worry about it. But we'll see if we can manage that. I did keep the This is like the fin that sits on the inside of the armor here. I filled in the backside of it with plot plate. So we can cut this and, kind of use it as a spacer in there as well. So the arms actually, I took the peg joint, or I took the ball joint rather, off of the Core Alice Gundam's um, arm here and plastic cemented it to an extended peg joint that then goes into the poly cap of the Zeta Gundam arm. I had some weird ideas for how I was going to do the arm, and then I ended up just using the Zeta Gundam's arms because it's not like they have to extend or anything. It's the same length. Um, so yeah. Plus, I really like how with these, the Kaku, uh, I guess Jigen something knuckles, the Build Fighters knuckles, I'm thinking I can get a pretty cool pose where like, you know, it does like this motion, and he kind of commands the flight unit to fly off and attack. Um, Speaking of which, I wanted to show you guys what I had in mind for said flight unit. This is the parts forming piece to a Zeta Plus. This is part of that Zeta Plus build. Let's see what I can do here to show off to you guys what the plan is. So unfortunately, I only have, one Zeta Gundam to work with. Well, even fewer Zeta Gundams to work with now. Although what we might end up doing is recycling some parts um, from a broken real grade Zeta. So let's see here. Could have sworn this is how it goes. Oh, whoops. Is it this far forward? Oh, it's got to be up here. I see where the post is supposed to sit. I wonder if I'm supposed to... Oop. Lost a part there. So to give you guys an idea of what we're doing, Ah, there it is. And this guy goes in here. And this guy goes here. So this is going to be what the flight unit looks like. Oh, geez. I'm not even in the camera here. So this is what the flight unit is going to look like. We've got the wing attachments that, they are going to clip onto the backpack of the Zeta Gundam itself, but they can also connect to the peg joints on here. And they will come right up underneath that. And then, where is our other parts here? Where are the other parts? All right. Here is our shield, which I'm considering trimming this shield down. What I might end up doing is taking like this much of it and like shortening the shield. And you'll see why here in just a second, because we're going to install a peg joint under here to where the shield can connect. And then this is going to be our completed, oh well, most of it. This is most of what the flight unit is going to be. Obviously, we have these two pegs up on top, which is where our legs are going to attach. So when it is converted back into Core Gundam mode, the idea is the legs will detach. It goes into its little core stance. And then the legs will, we've got our, where did that piece go? Oh, here we go. So these are the parts that come with the, this is the base that the Core Gundam sits on, like the parts of it when it's not in full mode. So this is the part that would connect to the legs when it's not attached. And we're just going to rig this up so that it attaches like so. So it's going to look like the Zeta Gundam's Wave Rider. Or at least like kind of a bastardized version of it. And it's going to be sort of this flight back weapon system thing. I do have to find a way to attach these guys, the shoulders, to it as well. So maybe we'll do something like on the underside where we attach the shoulders. But yeah. Camille can control these with his new type powers. Send this thing flying around. And there you go. And then, of course, the added bonus. I actually don't know what happened to the original faceplate. I have been unable to find it. So, whoops. But what I had done was using some Silanot, I made a mold of the Zeta Gundam's faceplate. I think I have a second copy that I made sitting around here somewhere. Yeah. So, let's see if you guys can see this. So that is the Zeta Gundam's faceplate recast in white plastic. But I made a version that I cast in green plastic as well. And I started painting it, but then I realized that part of the chin was missing. So I took a little bit of pla plate and reshaped the chin there. And so we'll actually repaint this tonight. But the idea is, you guys know me, it's not complete if it doesn't have an LED. So here we've got a green wireless induction LED that we are going to tuck into the empty cavity of the head. Put the faceplate in here. Close it up. And then we'll be able to light up the eyes wirelessly. Actually, let's see if I can demo that. I think that our wireless induction ring should be working better this evening than it was last night. So here's our Zeta Gundam. Well, that's really dim, but it is working. I don't know if it's like super faint. I think I need to angle it a little bit better. That's been the issue with this one, is that it's such a fine, like that little notch right there is what the light needs to be shining into. And as you can see, the light kind of gets stuck back there. So when it's time, we're going to fix this thing in here with some plastic cement or something to make sure that it is in place where it can actually shine through the eyes. So you can see it does come on there, but it's just really faint. And as you can see, we've painted the inside of the head here to block any excess light. Because when I first put this thing in here, man, I gotta tell you, it was like the entire head was lighting up green. So, and this actually is a white LED, so I don't know what I'm doing with it. We need to swap that out for a green. Now, I've been running a couple of experiments. I did, in fact, cast in Silanot the parts that I need from that Zeta Plus. So this would be the mold for that. But the versions that I've made so far have not turned out particularly well. This one, obviously, I caught a huge bubble that left the... If we were talking in traditional injection molding terms, this would be called a short shot, where it doesn't completely fill the mold, and so therefore it's a failed one. But the details on it are particularly good. Now this one, on the other hand, did fill the mold completely, with the exception of this little piece that broke off. I think that actually broke off when I was demolding it. But the bad side of this one is that when I molded it, I molded this entire thing. Let me see if I can pull that out for you. I did this entire part all at once, and what happened was I trapped air bubbles inside here, and so as the air bubbles were escaping, you can probably see that the mold caught these air bubbles that are going to be a nightmare to try and remove. So I do need to, yeah, there's one there. So I do need to recast this. And that's the upside of the Silanot, right? Is that I can recast the mold as many times as I need to and not have to worry about wasting precious, precious silicone. As long as I make sure that we do some temperature regulation to ensure that we are not going to melt the part. So, let's focus on the head tonight. We're going to try and get this LED working a little bit more optimally. I might have to dig a little further into the plastic here. And you know what? I think for the sake of my own sanity, let's swing the camera around, and I think that this is probably a little bit better of an angle, if not a little blurry. Let's there we go. I love now that I am able to shift the camera into manual focus, and then that way we can get a little more intimate here and not have to worry about the camera bopping in and out of focus. What's interesting is I am using a Logitech Brio, which is a 4K webcam, and in the Logitech Capture app, there is an option to turn off the autofocus, but it does not work. You can turn off the autofocus and it will continue to try to autofocus. This Logitune app that I have found It's also an official Logitech app, but it is more of, it's not designed for streaming or recording. It's just designed to manage the camera settings. That one actually works when it comes to disabling the autofocus. So I don't want to dig too deep because, as you can see, we are actually already breaking into the where the ball joint for the head goes, and we don't want to do that. But the idea is we definitely want to make some room for this LED. Let's see if I've got a green one handy. I could have sworn that I did. I might just like wave this over my desk and see if anything lights up. Guess not. Maybe I put it away. There we go. We've got some greens in here. It's not entirely necessary to do a green light, uh, on account of the fact that we've got some green resin in there anyway. But I don't know. I like the way that the green light looks coming through here. So let's see if I were to. And so, like, last night was interesting, right? Because we did a totally different application of the wireless LED. We did like a ranged version, whereas tonight we are going for a melee version. Yeah, I mean, I think that, shoot, even from here, the light looks brighter, so. Oh, geez. Oh, so we kind of have to, like, tilt this downwards in order to get it to positioned. There we go. Now if we do that, put the faceplate in. I might even, I'm just going to put a little ball of plasticine clay in above the LED just to ensure that it doesn't rattle around while I'm assembling it. That's more like the effect that we're looking for. Although it still looks slightly obscured. I can't tell if that's because of the... Hmm. Right? Am I crazy? Does the right eye look slightly obscured to you guys? But fortunately, as you can see, the light does not shine through here at all. So we're in good shape there. Oh, you know what? Give me just a moment. Sorry, I had an urgent message come up. All right. Crisis averted, you guys. We're also going to try out something tonight. It's called bonking the microphone with my light. So as you can see, I took a pass at painting that faceplate, and we are going to complete the faceplate paint, face paint, face. Oh my gosh! I told you guys it's been a long day. We're gonna continue painting the faceplate, and again, part of the issue was that we wanted to mask out some of the light. Yeah, I can see now. If you look there, the light is kind of knocked to the left a little bit, so we are going to fix that. And maybe I just need to cut the tabs on this a little bit shorter, and then it'll still grab on to the faceplate, but it won't block the light there. I think that that's exactly what we're going to do. Let's grab this. I need to be very delicate though because I've ruined an LED while jostling it in there. And then we need our little clampy. And one of the things that I'm going to do with this guy, as you can see, I did a black base coat and then went over it in white. But what we are going to do is we're going to doll up this white. I'm using some Vallejo model color, and we're actually going to add a little bit of accessory to it. Here in our palette, we're going to be adding a little bit of this replacement for the Pledge Future floor shine material. And just so you guys understand, your boy made a goof and bought a 64-ounce jug without testing it first. So the good news is this stuff does work and should go a long way. It is an acrylic floor coating that scale modelers I've seen use as a top coat. I've seen it used, in a lot of different ways. Really, what I'm using it for is I'm adding it to my acrylic paints in order to slow down their drying time and use it as a leveler. And that way, I will get less brush marks. Because as you guys know, I hand paint things. Or at least most of the time I hand paint things. So, that is what we are doing today. Let's see. We're going to put this thing. Here we go. And then I will recap this guy. Yeah, and so I just used that little pipette to put our finish in there. And then I'm going to toss some white paint in here. That is way too much. It came out faster than I could stop it. And I'm just going to take a little bit here on my paintbrush and add it. I might even go the reverse of that and add the paint to the floor shine. And this is also going to give it like a glossy coat compared to just the paint on its own. It's kind of like a miracle substance because so you can even see, let me push in on this so you guys can see what we're working with here. So this is just the paint by itself, right? And if I kind of glob it on there, you can see that you've got some streaks going on. When you take this stuff, which is the mixture of the floor shine and the white paint, and we dab it on here, do you see how it levels itself out? and creates a smoother finish. That is what we are going for on here. So let's come in here and just apply our white faceplate. I'm going to do so pretty liberally here. I actually went back and I went in with a chisel and carved the panel lines in a little bit deeper in order to accentuate them, so that when we painted it like this, it'll still be easy to drop some panel lining in there. So, I mean, yeah, you see it goes on there and you see the brush strokes, but then you give it time and they fade away. So let's set that up to dry over here. Should take a good long while. And while that dries, I really wish that I hadn't set that on top of my black paint that we are going to need. Oh geez, there goes the Core Zeta. Zeta down. So while that does its thing, we're just going to use some standard black acrylic. I'm not even sure, this might have been, I think Apple Barrel is the Walmart brand. Deco Art is like the Michaels or Ben Franklin equivalent. Is there still a Ben Franklin store? I don't think there is. I think that they shut down. Everything is either Hobby Lobby or, you know, whatever big hobby conglomerate. And again, we're just going to kind of liberally paint the inside of this black in order to prevent any light pollution from getting through, because nothing ruins the effect quite like something that makes it look like a toy. This one actually is already looking pretty good. Get all in the little creases and crevices here. And it's kind of cool because it adds a sort of shadow to the inside of the mask. So even if you catch, you know, a glimpse, even if you catch a glimpse under the mask from the front, you know, it kind of adds a little bit of shading there. So pretty cool. Now, as I mentioned, the real challenge we need to address is that light shining through the two little tabs here. So let's just go ahead and take a hobby saw. And we're just going to clear this area, pave the road, so to speak. There we go. And we want to leave just enough of the tab so that when the part is affixed in there, it'll actually hold it. This one I might be cutting a little too close, but I guess we'll only one way to find out. Okay, come on. There we go. That's weird. So hopefully those little tabs are going to be enough to hold the faceplate in. And then our green light, which is still working, which is good. Green light will go in there, and then we can cap the whole thing off. Now, some other considerations that we need to address, while these parts are drying and curing and doing their thing. So, I mentioned we got to do something about the chest, right? So, we're going to try and do something about that. And then we also have to do something about this groin piece because, we do want to have the front and rear skirts attached to it. I've kind of written off the side skirts as a lost cause, but the front skirt we might be able to create some sort of attachment for. The question is, I don't know, this kind of looks rather large and silly. What do you guys think? If I were to use the entire front Zeta skirt, let's pull up so we can get a full body view of this thing. I'm not concerned about how it's going to look when it's in full Zeta mode, but when it's in Core Gundam mode, this looks kind of ridiculous, right? It looks like he's wearing Jinkos. Um, so maybe we need to do something about that. Let's see if I can get the focus right here. Yeah, he looks like he's kind of wearing a like a kilt or something. So I'm thinking, do we cut the skirts themselves down? Do we cut this part down? What's the answer here? And then same thing with the rear skirt. The rear one I think is not as bad, but it's still obnoxiously huge. And so I was thinking for this one, we could cut the sides of it off and just trim them down enough so that they're level with the center. And then that way, that is going to be the skirt instead of the full length. Something to consider there. And like I said, with the chest, we just really need to keep hollowing it out so that it completely covers the existing chest piece. And for the sake of fully illustrating, fully illustrating what this is going to look like, let's grab these parts out of here. These are the chest vents. And I love how these particular chest vents are kind of oblongly shaped. Most of the newer versions of the Zeta, they don't taper down like this. They're kind of like straight across. I actually like the taper. And so basically the idea is we need to keep carving out this section until it's hollow enough that it actually sits over the existing chest. And I don't think that that's going to look too ridiculous. I haven't decided whether we actually replace the cockpit or if we just leave that cockpit in there and paint it red. But first things first, we need to sand this down until we get to some smooth plastic. Do I have? I could have sworn I had some sandpaper here. Some of my here it is. Little 400 grit. Oh no, you can kind of still see that seam line, can't you? almost want to take some of this, the filings that are coming off from here and like, let's see if this will work. Really strengthen that bond in the center. And then I'll come in and sand that again. And we're probably going to end up painting this in a similar shade of blue anyway, so let's see. Scribing would be the best option. I assume you're referring to the skirt on the, as far as scribing. I don't know that I don't know that scribing will really do much for it. I definitely need to cut it down first, right? I think I still need to actually trim the chest down because it's not sitting flush inside of the body here. So as you can see, because this body is actually not designed to fit with this particular Core Gundam chest, I had to cut it down in order to make room, but it is still pushing back. I can't tell where the tension is coming from. I'm thinking it's got to be from in here, but it's like I can't cut those pegs. Or is it from the sides there? Yeah, I think it might be that right there. So do we try and... No, that's not going to work. What can we do to make this guy sit flush? Let's go ahead and come in with Mr. Nipper. Trim this down. But yeah, I think I would be nervous about scribing as it's not my strongest skill, but if you think it'll make the groin look smaller, then, you know, things that guys never say for 300, Alex. Uh, yeah, I think that even just trimming that back makes it look a little bit better. It's a little more flush in the cavity there. And that's the problem when you're using the standard Core Gundam torso inside the Alice Core Gundam body, which I chose to use the Alice for a couple of reasons. One, it was the only one that was available at my local hobby town at the time that I started this project. And two, I thought from a utility standpoint, wouldn't Camille like to use some kind of clawfoot device, you know, so that he can, because remember, when it's in Core Gundam mode, this is not a combat mobile suit. It's more like a junior mobile. It's going to be able to grip onto things and like operate while on the moon. We're going under the assumption that Moon Gundam is canon and that Camille is a doctor working on the moon. So, as a doctor, yes, he has a junior mobile that he uses for various tasks, but you know, should disaster strike, that's when we call in the back weapon system and transform into the full Core Zeta Gundam. You know me, I like to have a backstory for these things. And again, you know, being that this mobile suit is so much smaller than the standard Zeta, as far as like the shield goes, I think that obviously the shield looks ridiculous being this large, and from the perspective of mounting it to the weapon system, we want it to be a little bit shorter so that it's a little bit more of a snub nose. Hmm. So we'll see what we can do. Let's see. Backstories make it way more alive than this is a cool thing. I agree. I agree with that for sure. I'm towards the final half of Zeta Gundam, not a fan of any characters except Char, which is funny because he's, an evil and manipulative person. The shield being that large could probably work if it doubled as a weapon in some fashion. That was what I was thinking too behind the idea of mounting the grenade launcher onto the arm as well. I was like, oh, what if it's not even just a grenade launcher anymore? It's like it's full of medical supplies or something, and he can launch them out of the grenade launcher and then raise his hand up like that and summon the back weapon system to come in and serve as like a bomber or something like that. Um, and then I might even disable. So this is the beam rifle that comes with the Zeta Gundam. It's in its like retracted mode and it extends, but I'm thinking I might just fix it in the retracted mode and keep it as a short beam rifle. I don't know. We'll see. Um, I think that this is going to be a simple, we're just going to fix this onto here. And the tail binder already plugs on here. So when it is in standard Core Gundam mode, it's going to have this stabilizer, the tail stabilizer, to kind of help it balance while it's in AMBAC mode. And then, of course, when it's in its full Zeta mode, that's when we have the wings pop off of here, and they will. I've got to find a good way for them to attach. This is the part that they attach to on the standard high grade Zeta. So to illustrate to you what that might look like, we've got our Zeta wings. Plug them on here. And then this is actually the Zeta torso from the high grade. And it looks something like this. Uh, so now, can we take this and somehow mount it here? I don't think that that's unreasonable. Although I think it's going to look terrible if we just have these two pegs sticking out of the back when it's not in Zeta Gundam mode. So basically it's supposed to sit like this. Oh geez, this is like fumbling around. Maybe if I built it on a hinge somehow where they snap down. Hmm. Much to ponder. I probably shouldn't have cut that peg joint off because then I could just mount it there and we'd be in business, but oh well. Lessons learned. I can always extend that peg joint with something. So basically I just need a couple of peg joints that easy now. I just need a couple of peg joints for this to mount onto back here. What if we fix this onto here and we just cut that off and shave it down so that it's flush with the backpack? And then I'll still just have these, these binders sticking off, but at least it's not going to be as obnoxious. Oh, you know what? I think, does it go like that where there's like a notch in here? I can't tell if that's related. Well, no, because that sits flat. Okay, never mind. Yeah, I think that's what we're going to do. So we're just going to fix that to the inside because it is supposed to sit flush right underneath the gray there. So it actually gives us something to attach the parts together. Let's pop this down just a little bit so I'm not having to raise my hands up so high. So first things first, let's get a little CA glue and mount the inside of this part. And I may come to regret this, but you know. Like I said, the added bonus of having a real grade Zeta Gundam that I've completely borked is that I have a ton of spare Zeta parts. We can go to the Zeta graveyard. Everywhere the Wave Rider touches is your kingdom. Speaking of spare real grade Zeta parts, I actually have the real grade Zeta legs sitting around here, which is kind of cool. I mean, the added level of detail is obviously awesome on these things compared to the standard Zeta. But you'll find that like the standard Zeta legs have a much more bulbous profile, which I like. You know, I like the thicker look. These almost have like a Verka style skinny leg appearance to them, which I am not a fan of, as you guys know. But that said, I mean, there's some cool stuff. I mean, there is stuff to be appreciated about these. Like obviously the mechanical prowess that goes into the transforming mechanism of these legs is pretty impressive. But you know, the funny thing is I ended up hollowing all of that out just to fit the core Gundam's legs in there. So it's like for all of the engineering marvel that went into the real grade Zeta Gundam, I ended up just, or I should say, any Zeta Gundam, I just ended up hollowing the thing out and making it a giant hole. So as you can see here, let's see, let me adjust our focus here so that you guys can actually see what I'm seeing. There we go. So like I said, um, with that floor polish in there, it really does improve the finish of the part. I'm trying to get it like not quite in this bright light so that we can so that we can marvel at the beauty of this nice smooth piece. I think it's dry enough that I can test how it's going to look in here, and then we'll probably sign off for the evening because, like I said, I am exhausted from today. So, as you can see, the LED kind of sits a little bit lower. Actually, if I rotate it, we'll be able to get it even lower in there because of the resistor. So these LEDs, I will warn you, if you do decide to get the Tidescent wireless induction LEDs that I have linked in my profile, they're fairly inexpensive, obviously, this entire LED kit. But what I will say is that they are technically 3-volt LEDs, but they have a resistor on them to account for the 5-volt charge that's coming from the induction ring. So, and I only learned about this, because I used some of my other LEDs that are 3-volt on the unit. So, just something to bear in mind that if you take them off of the inductor, they don't need 5 volts. You'll probably burn them out if you do that. All right, I think that's looking pretty sweet. Moment of truth. Ow. Ooh. Ouch. Accidentally bridged the connections there. I was like, huh, why isn't it lighting up? Why is my thumb burning? I accidentally touched the positive and the negative and electrocuted myself. So there you go. That is our Zeta head. To view it in context, we're going to pop it on here. Man, I think I really burned the heck out of my thumb. And I don't know, I might leave the V-fin off and just have this kind of Rigazy looking Zeta variant vibe going on. I don't know, you guys tell me if you think that that's the way to go or not. Yeah, boy. Pretty cool. And for added bonus, let me see here. Before I sign off for the evening, I want to show you guys something because we might be able to level this up even more. So this is a battery pack, a battery case that I had on my phone because my phone is like 15 years old and doesn't hold a charge anymore. Um, and what happened was part of it got desoldered here. So you can see like this is the lithium battery. This is the charging port that holds the thing together. And this is the positive lead, which I might be able to get it to power back on. Yeah, you can see the LEDs on it flicker there for just a moment. I haven't been able to repair this thing, so I think it's probably junked. There we go. So it's like it needs to be connected like right here, but I don't know. I can't get it to solder properly. Anyway, the point is, does this little piece look familiar to you guys? It should, because it's the same thing as this, a little copper coil. So what this is designed to do is, typically it's an iPhone, right? So it's got the little iPhone lightning jack, and then it's got a lightning jack under here. But if you are one of those fortunate souls that has a, one of those contact chargers, basically it's an induction ring, and so like what you would do is, typically you would set your phone on one of those contact chargers, and it charges the lithium battery there for you. Well, that's what this is. This is how you would charge the cell phone battery if you had this battery case attached to it. And if you look on the back, there's like a little graphic here for where you would put your charging unit, whatever you want to call it, wherever you would, you set the phone on it to wirelessly charge. So what we might end up doing here, ladies and germs, is harvesting this induction ring from my busted cell phone battery, because this is obviously a much tighter packed coil than this. Basically what I would do is take this coil and desolder these coils from here, and then we have a much denser coil that we can then fit inside of our back weapon system. And so the idea being that when I go to action base this bad boy, I can plug in the back weapon system as the wireless electricity transceiver, and it can be what powers the Zeta Gundam's eye light, whatever you guys want to call it. So, interesting little gizmo here. And it's got a neat little button. Maybe I might try and steal some components off this thing. I mean, you've got a ton of little resistors here. You've got some LEDs, which, to show you guys what I mean with like these are the LEDs that I typically use, right? They're literally the same LEDs that would go on a PCB like this, where they would be mounted on the surface. So surface mount LEDs instead of wired ones. So pretty cool. Now I hope you guys enjoyed this little look at the Core Zeta Gundam. I still think that I am on track to finish it by December 1st. That is, of course, the goal. If you are over on the Patreon, you can have your work featured on the first live show of the month. There's still time to get signed up on Patreon. I know Ultronimus there in chat has his submission just about ready to go. And basically, it's not so much a contest, it's just around like the idea of a theme, right? And I thought, what better represents the idea of fusion than taking two Gundams and fusing them into one and creating something that is two parts, right? It is the core Gundam, and then there's the back weapon system, and it comes together, fuses into the core Zeta Gundam. So there's a few more problems to solve around the torso and the skirt, like I mentioned. And then, of course, I do need to make a successful casting of that back weapon system part that we can clone. Like I mentioned, we're cloning parts and recycling them. And once we get that going, man, I think that we're going to be off to the races. I'm going to mostly rattle can spray paint this whole thing, with the exception of a few of those like finer details like the faceplate that you guys just saw. I got to tell you, I mean, I don't know if this camera will do it more justice. We'll see if I can. Come on, focus on this guy. Well, maybe I'll post some photos in the Discord later. But honestly, it's like once I seal this head up with some plastic cement, I think it's gonna really come together, and you can see how good the faceplate looks. Well, thank you guys for hanging out this evening. I hope you guys have a good rest of your week. I will, of course, see you guys again Wednesday for the Midnight Hatter live show with Adam. I'm not sure what we're going to be talking about yet, but I'm sure something will come up. Until then, you guys take it easy. Cheers.